Santosh sir, shall we begin?
Yeah, we can begin.
Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. We will now begin our final part of this conference, the paper presentations. The session will be chaired by Dr. Santosh Tiwargis. So, sir, I hand over the session to you.
Thank you, Ninu. And good afternoon to one and all, especially the coordinator of the one-day seminar, Dr. Santosh Kumar, other senior faculty members, and the fellow participants, and the paper presenters of this session. So all in all, we have 7 papers to be presented in this session, which can be categorized into 3 groups. The first one is connected with the various expenditure and policy evaluation aspects of public finance. And then we have 3 papers. In the first category of this expenditure and policy evaluation, we have 2 papers, sorry. The first paper will be presented by Dr. Shikha Ramesh with that paper which explicitly deals with the various regulatory aspects of waste management in Kerala, which becomes a very important one, especially in the context of this Brahmapuram fire that has been the dumping yard of Kochi Corporation. Then the second paper in that session that deals with the determinants of capital expenditure on education. So these 2 papers are dealing with education, expenditure and policy evaluation. Then we move on to then the second group of papers are connected with the various fiscal issues, like the tax performance of Indian states after the introduction of GST, then the public debt and sustainability, the fiscal federalism and decentralization. Then the third group of papers explicitly dealing with the decentralization experiences of our states. The first one is dealing with the issues connected with the Life Mission project, which is a mascot project of the government of Kerala. And the other one is dealing with the issue of people's participation in Grama Sabha, a study, something like a case study of Kolari Grama Panchayat of Thrissur district. So it will be, I will call upon various presenters in this manner. The first paper will be presented by Dr. Shikha Ramesh, and the second paper will be presented by Dr. Ashwati Rachel Varghese, dealing with the various expenditure and policy aspects of various projects. I think we have 10 minutes for each paper presentation, and within that 10 minutes, we have to make the presentation and we have to complete the Q&A session also. So which means that for presenting the paper, we get only around 6 to 7 minutes. So the remaining 3 minutes will be given for any questions from the participants. So regarding this paper deals with e-waste management regulations in Kerala. We know that a cursory evaluation itself shows that there has happened a grave regulatory failure with respect to the Brahmapuram fire. As not only it is with respect to this Brahmapuram, everywhere with respect to waste management, we are facing with a lot of issues connected with the aspects of regulatory environment prevailing in Kerala. So this becomes a very important paper, and I invite Dr. Shikha Ramesh to present her views on the regulatory aspects of e-waste management in Kerala. Hello, Shikha. Hello, Shikha, you are not audible actually. Nino, shall I call the second?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
We
okay.
can continue with the second
okay.
one,
Now
sir.
there may be some technical issues for Shikha. So we move on to the second paper. It is the title as the determinants of capital expenditure on education empirical analysis. We know that for education, the revenue expenditure component will be the major one when we talk about the expenditure on education, but the paper is focusing upon the capital expenditure, which doesn't mean that that is unimportant. Capital expenditure is a very important factor which crucially determines the learning environment and the learning process that makes the process of education to be organized in modern lines and in a more engaging manner with every participant of the learning process. So I invite Dr. Ashwati Rachel Varghese, faculty of Applied Economics, CUSAT, to present the paper.
Thank you, sir. Respected chair, respected faculty members, research scholars, and dear students. Let me share the screen.
Yeah, share the screen.
Yeah. I got a message like host has disabled the participant screen sharing.
So Nino, please intervene.
Yes, sir.
Or if you have the presentation with you, then you can share. So that
actually she may not be having it, sir.
Okay,
I haven't sent it to her.
Then please enable her.
Still, I'm getting the same message.
Ma'am, can you try now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Ashwati, please confine your presentation within 6 to 7 minutes. Okay.
Sure, sir. Sure, I'll do that. I hope the screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So let me.
You can move to the slideshow. You can move to the slideshow.
Yeah, actually. Okay. Okay. Today I would like to discuss with you regarding the determinants of capital expenditure on education and empirical analysis across states in India. So we know that with respect to the changing fiscal priorities of the world government, the priorities for the allocation to social sector varies. So basically, the social sector allocations take a toll with changing fiscal priorities due to the evolving macroeconomic situations and things like that. So basically, education expenditure takes a toll when we have challenges from the macroeconomic side and fiscal side. So as a theoretical background, we know that Schulz in 1961, way back in 1961, he actually equated investments in education to the stock of human capital of a nation. And later on, Romer and Lucas in 1986 and 88, they popularized the role of education through endogenous growth theory, that how it is affecting the economic growth and economic development. And with respect to investments in education per se, we know that there are three broad categories of expenditure, which comes from public expenditure, private investments from the private players, and investments by the households. So both public and private investments take the supply side view of the education expenditure, and household expenditure takes a demand side view. With respect to public expenditure per se, like we have revenue and capital expenditure in the broad categorization. And while browsing through the literature, it is very evident that we have enormous studies focusing on public spending on education. And that is basically focusing on the revenue part of the education expenditure. And studies with respect specifically to the capex are found scanty in the literature, maybe because of the volatile nature of the capital expenditure itself. So the basic research questions raised by this paper is, what are the trends and patterns of capex on education post-liberalization? And what are the factors determining capex on education across Indian states? And before I should go to the nitty-gritties, I should say that it's an ongoing paper. So the third objective I would like to look into, it's the linkage between capex on education and labor productivity from the Indian context at a subnational level. So basically, the background, we know that capex, as I mentioned, is generally or specifically on education is found volatile, varying from year to year. And capex on education is found more prone to changing macroeconomic landscapes of the country. And as I mentioned earlier, we view capital expenditure as a part of public expenditure from the supply side of education, that is from the provision of the education. And if we are failing, like any kind of failure on the part of capital expenditure, it may affect the demand for education as well. Because from the existing studies, we know that demand for education is rising because the household education expenditure is on a rising, showing a rising trend. So any failure to meet this demand supply conditions of education may have serious implications on the educational status of the country. Moving on to trends and patterns of capital expenditure on education. Public expenditure on education has been stagnating over the years, ranging, if we are taking the data from 2000 to 2022, it was 4.8% way back in 2000, and it has reduced to 2.8% of GDP in 2022, which is in stark contrast with the Kothari Commission recommendation that the education allocation should be 6% of the GDP for a developing country like India. That is way back in 1960s. And even in the recent national education policy also, there has been a mention about the allocation of education expenditure, which is almost about 6% of GDP that is required for our country. With respect to capital expenditure per se, that is 3% of the total expenditure has been spent on the capital front, where 97% of the expenditure is for revenue purposes. And we know that revenue is basically for running the system, and for capital expenditure, we use it for infrastructural development, land, building and machineries and etc. So capex mainly, when we analyze the data, when we read the data, it is mainly the onus is on state. That is, state is spending majority of the capital expenditure, which is accounting up to 50 to 20% of their account. And we can see that aftermath of financial crisis, that is economic and non-economic events, have an influence on this capex when we read the data. But specifically with respect to state, the aftermath of financial crisis and pandemic, the responsibilities on state has increased with respect to capital expenditure. So this is a quick glance we can have about the fiscal federalism in capex on education, and it is crystal clear that the center has a very negligible share of capital expenditure on education, while the state is having the burden of capital expenditure or responsibility of capital expenditure on education. So a state-wise analysis, from the descriptive analysis side, a state-wise analysis, I could see that I have divided the states into high income, middle income and low income according to the per capita NSDP. So I could see that irrespective of the income or irrespective of the geography or whatever it is, there is no specific trend for capital expenditure. And this trend has been shown for 1995, 2005, and 2015 and 2021. So basically, this expenditure has been adjusted for inflation. So it is at the constant prices of 2011-12 using GDP deflators. So we can see that by income wise, there is no particular trend for capex on education by states. So what determines the capex on education? If it is not economic side of states, so what are the key factors? What could be the key factors that determines capex on education? So it is an intriguing question. So I have taken some economic variables, education variables and political variables to analyze that the influence, the degree of influence of these particular variables on capex on education. So next I have taken the level of privatization of education sector and related to the policies of the state government, because mostly the policies which are conducive for like private players on education, that matters a lot for setting up private educational institutions in a particular state. So the state government policies are favorable for privatization of education sector and things like that. And with respect to political economy of capex on education, for example, we can say that if it is a strong government or a weak government, what could be the level of capex on education in that particular year? Or if it is an election year, it may impact the allocation of capex or not, things like that. So we'll see more details about this variable.
Ashwati, you have to rush.
Yes, sir. Yes. So economic variables I have taken, as I told you, just 2 minutes, sir. Per capita GSDP and unemployment rate, and grants as a part of center as a percentage of GSDP is one of the important variables. Then I have demographic variables because the composition of school-going population affect the spending, and the share of dependent population, that is the population above 65 years of age, which means that you have to allocate more amount for welfare measures and things like that. Then other control variables I have used is the share of marginalized population and share of rural population, which also affects the allocation. So the event variable, this is a binary variable, dummy variable I have incorporated in the model, which is economic and non-economic events affecting the capex, for example, financial crisis or pandemic or things like that. Then education variables, I have taken the average years of schooling to know the educational status of a particular state. And the extent of privatization is again a dummy variable, which is the proportion of medical and engineering colleges in a state. If it is higher than national average, the variable takes the value 1. Then political variables are to know that whether the government type is strong or not, the percentage of seats held by the single largest party in the assembly. And again, I have bifurcated into whether if it is a coalition government, whether it is a strong coalition or a weak coalition, depending upon the number of shares of the seats held by the single party. So the model comes into the natural log of capex on education. I is the number of states, 15 major states of India I have considered, and T is the time period 6 because I have considered 1995 to 2005, then 5 period time gap, and then the latest 2021 time I have also incorporated. So it comes to 6. So here we have economic variable, demographic variable, political variable, and control variables. So panel fixed effects and dynamic estimation.
So Ashwati, you come to the findings, major findings.
Yeah. So basically, when you see this table, I hope you can see this table, the determinants of capex on education, which is estimated coefficients of static and dynamic panel data model. We have analyzed, and due to the time constraint, I'm just coming to the main crux of the discussion. That is, income level of the state does not matter. As we have seen, the income level, GSDP, does not matter. Rather, unemployment level in a state, that is a macroeconomic variable which matters for the capital allocation. And central grants have less influence because maybe the central grants are basically used majorly for meeting the revenue expenses than the capital expenses. That is why I got an insignificant result. And educational status of the states influences capex. That means the average years of schooling that reflect the education level of the state, that actually influences the capex level of the state in a statistically significant manner. And the privatization actually influence in a negative manner. Why? Because if there is an increased level of privatization, there is less responsibility from the government to spend for infrastructural development and things like that. So it affects negatively, and the share of dependent population and marginalized population also strongly affect the capex in a negative and significant way. And the proportion of school-going students influence, because I have different age groups. In that age groups, majorly the elementary school-going children affect the level of capex. Maybe because our country or state-wise also, we are focusing more on establishing infrastructural amenities at the elementary level than the higher secondary or the higher education level. So events such as financial crisis and pandemic are also influencing the capex, but it is positively influencing the capex on state. Why? Because aftermath of all this crisis, all this economic and non-economic events, we could see that the responsibility from this part of the state has increased. So the political economy of capex is very evident from this analysis. That is, the strong or weak government determines the capex on education. So more than the economic variables, demographic and political variables are leaving an impact on the level of capex in the country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ashwati, for making the presentation. So we will have a discussion on this paper after Shika is also making the presentation. So Shika, you can make the presentation on the regulatory aspects of e-waste management.
Thank you, sir. So is it audible now?
Yeah, it's audible. Audible.
Okay, sir. So good afternoon, everyone, respected chair and other participants. Yeah, I shall share the screen right now. Thank you. First of all, I'm thanking Center for Budget Studies for giving me this opportunity to present the paper. I'm trying to share the screen. I'm trying to share the screen, but it is the dialog box is appearing as shows disabled participant screen sharing. So I'm unable to share the screen.
Nenu, can you help?
Can someone make me the host so that I can share the screen?
Nenu, make Shika as a host also, as a co-host. Hello, Nenu?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
So Nenu, please make all the other paper presenters also as co-hosts so that we can save time.
Okay, sir. So the title of my paper is Evaluation of the Effectiveness of E-Waste Management Regulations in Kerala and Exploration of Stakeholder Participation and Environmental Federalism. So coming to the meaning of environmental federalism, it basically deals with the proper assignment of various roles to different levels of government in order to protect various problems in the environment. All the environmental laws coming to make federalism work by imposing their national standards on the states, so that the states can effectively implement their plans accordingly. But theoretically speaking, even though these laws put forward have all the essential aspects of the environmental cooperative federalism to carry out their unified goals, in practice, when we see, the results raise many issues. Now, coming to the global e-waste generation, the e-waste or electronic waste is one of the inevitable banes of growing consumerism. Accelerating consumption rates, demand for electronic gadgets, together with rapid progression of technology, innovations, and high obsolescence rate, contributes to the accelerating e-waste hazard. Now, the legislation for proper handling and management of e-waste is crucial as it sets the standards for monitoring the activities of various stakeholders related to e-waste so that their compliance is ensured. As of 2019, less than half of all the countries in the world, that is only 78 out of the total 193 UN member states, currently have a national policy or regulation with respect to electronic waste. However, the mere presence of any e-waste rules does not imply its effective implementation, as illegal dumping of e-waste, both domestically and internationally, has been rampant despite the existence of many such rules. The global e-waste generation reached an alarming 53.6 metric tons in 2019, of which only 9.3 metric tons of e-waste was formally documented to be collected and recycled, while the rest 82.6%, that is about 44.3 metric tons of e-waste, what has been done with that much amount of e-waste still remains unknown. Now, coming to e-waste legislation in India, the central and the state pollution control boards have the obligation to manage and monitor the e-waste generated. The first draft guidelines on electronic waste management in the country was presented in 2008 by the Central Pollution Control Board, that is the CPCB, to identify the sources of e-waste generation and to adopt an eco-friendly method to handle the e-waste generated. And the draft guidelines was later instigated as a e-waste management and handling rules 2011 by introducing the concept of extended producer responsibility. The rule was again revised in 2016 and was named as e-waste management and handling rules 2016 by introducing a target-based collection approach. And various authorizations were also simplified in this amended law so that the legislation be enforced without any difficulty. The rule was again amended in 2017, which called for the producers to comply with the EPR, that is Extended Producer Responsibility Authorization, and the collection targets. And monetary penalization for the stakeholders for violating the rules were also fixed in this amended law. The rule then again was amended in 2018 by inserting a new clause that all the obligations set for the producers of electronic products apply to all the producers who have placed any good in the market. And then again, lately, the rules are again amended in the year 2022, which will come into effect from April 1st, 2023 onwards. And the new amended rules also calls for the stakeholders to register on the Central Pollution Control Board online portal, and have also included many other electronic products as well, including obsolete solar photovoltaic cells. So these many amendments have been made with respect to e-waste legislation in India. However, in spite of all these amendments, enforcing e-waste rules has been challenging in our country. In an e-waste policy workshop conducted in 2019 by the Central Pollution Control Board, they cited several challenges for adequate implementation of the said rules. They were non-availability of reliable e-waste inventory, no apt verification of collection system and stakeholder compliance, informal sector collection and recycling of e-waste, low awareness among households and bulk consumers, and no strict monitoring of activities by the state pollution control boards, the respective state pollution control boards. So hence, unless the new e-waste rules 2022, which will be coming into effect from April 1st onwards, unless the new rules overcome all these challenges that has been mentioned, making any new amendments or any new laws with respect to e-waste is insignificant. Now, a study conducted by Toxics Link, it's a think tank basically focusing on studies with respect to all types of waste management. A study conducted by Toxic Link in 2019 validates that the e-waste rules in the country still lacks serious operational issues. They state that the electronic producers are doing only the least so that they are not under the radar for violating the rules that has been laid down by the government. The take-back mechanism of majority of the producers is only on papers, and their collection points have been found to be non-operational. Many producers are still operating in the nation without the fear of any sort of penalty in spite of violating the rules, which calls for stringent monitoring and enforcement. So the main objective of this paper, that is with these instances in the background, the main objective of this paper is to examine the efficacy and compliance level of the e-waste management rules 2016 among the stakeholders in Kerala, with special reference to Ernakulam. Now, with this objective, the paper intends to throw light onto the extent of environmental cooperative federalism being practiced with
Shika,
respect to yes, sir.
Shika, you come to the findings if you have any
yes, sir.
Specific findings. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the stakeholders that have been taken for analysis are the Ernakulam District Office of the State Pollution Control Board and 6 municipal authorities, that is Cochin Corporation, and 5 adjacent municipalities, that is Marada Municipality, Tripunithura, Trikakara, Kalamassery, and Aluva. So
these are all okay. You can skip, Shika.
Okay,
you can
so
skip.
These are the e-waste legislation in Kerala, what has been pointed out. Okay, coming to the findings, in the case of Ernakulam, the state pollution control boards have mostly remained as agencies of industrial pollution control boards. But regarding the responsibility to maintain an e-waste inventory, see, all these responsibilities are of the state pollution control board in order to handle e-waste. But
Shika,
we can see that the
findings.
Compliance level. Yes, sir. These are the findings, sir. These are
okay,
the findings.
Okay.
But we can see here, adjacent to it, that the compliance level remains more or less partial, except for the collection centers, wherein only the owners of the collection centers stated that they are complying with adequate storage facility and not storing their e-waste for 180 days. But I did not get any such information or guarantee or confirmation from the State Pollution Control Board whether they are making any inspection or check to see whether these collection points are actually complying with these rules or not. Then coming to the municipal authorities, that is all the local self-governments of Kochi Corporation, as well as the municipality offices of the 5 municipalities that I've taken. From the interview conducted with the technical assistance of these local self-governments, it was known that these local self-governments remained clueless to the existence of any e-waste rules of the state and the center, because of which they either disposed of e-waste with the scrap vendors and stored in offices. And the local self-governments also reported to have no e-waste collection mechanism of their own, other than some collection drives that are conducted occasionally. Thus, an administrative level policy execution lapse can be witnessed among the local self-governments in Ernakulam, which is a grassroots level of public administration. Okay. So to sum up, it can be said that the absence of proper collection mechanism for e-waste displays the ineffectiveness of the municipal authorities to provide waste management services. The district office of the Pollution Control Board in Ernakulam was in partial compliance to the e-waste rules, while the municipal authorities were completely non-compliant with the set rules. To be compliant with the rule, the basic necessity is at least awareness of the existence of such rules, but the municipal authorities were not even aware of such rules, and they even asked me if I had a copy of the rule, then I'll be able to provide it or not. They even asked me that, because it is easily available in the Central Pollution Control Board website as well as in Kerala State Pollution Control Board website, but still they are unaware of it, which basically shows how unaware and how weak the management is. Now, as stated in the study by Manley, in 1987, though these environmental laws put forward all the essential aspects of environmental cooperative federalism, in practice, it raises many issues. So more than 3 decades have passed since that statement or study has been come forward. And this statement still holds true in the context of Kerala in relation to e-waste management. And I can also vouch the same for solid waste management in the state, as we are currently living through a live example of the inefficiency in environmental federalism related to waste management, especially the solid waste management, despite numerous laws and programs have been put forward for managing the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Shika, for the very good presentation that you have made. Then the session is open for questions. We have 2 papers. This can be considered as the first paper. The paper has focused upon the various environmental regulatory aspects with respect to the e-waste management, and she has made very good findings with respect to the real situation that we are facing in connection with the authorities who are interested to implement these regulations. So it would be better, it would have been much better had you focused upon the reasons or who is responsible for this pathetic situation that is happening at the grassroots level. Then that would have been much better. Shika may have some answers. Then she can make that. Then with regard to the another paper, the capital expenditure. So it's an analytical paper, but I have some confusion regarding a clear definition regarding the expenditure in education, because in some slides I have seen that the trend in capex, and beneath that it has been mentioned about public total expenditure. So there needs a clear definition regarding what do actually we mean by capital expenditure and revenue expenditure and the total expenditure. And what I feel is that one of the crucial determinant of the capital expenditure in education is the special requirements of the particular educational programs that we conduct in our schools or in colleges or in universities. So that peculiar characteristics of the programs is a crucial one that demands capital expenditure in institutions. So I am not sure whether you have incorporated that particular variable also into the model. Okay, so these are my brief comments, and it is open to the participants. If anybody has questions, you can directly ask, or you can make your comments in the chat box also.
So shall I answer to your question, sir?
Yeah. Shika, you can respond.
Sir. Okay, sir. So as per the findings and from the interview conducted, what I came to know is that And from what I believe is that I won't blame the government, but the pollution control board. Why we have actually created or implemented a pollution control board? Their main aim is to actually look after the problems of all types of waste management. But then again, many laws and programs are being enacted in paper, but the compliance of all those rules or regulations or whatever programs they are implementing on paper, they are not following anything, or even they are not even taking into account if it is being complied by the stakeholders or not. So the compliance level or any sort of inspection, no sort of inspection is being taken. So we can clearly see leave electronic waste management, sir. The basic problem of Kerala itself, even though Kerala being a highly literate state, having highest HDI and all, still we face the basic problem of waste management. Even the solid waste management couldn't be managed by our government. So the problem of e-waste is out of question. So I would say the State Pollution Control Board, who are basically entrusted with the task of taking up the problems of waste management and solving it, they should comply by whatever rules that are being laid by the central pollution control board, our central government, and they should also make the local self-governments aware of it. I mean, we speak about decentralization, but when it comes to waste management, I couldn't see any sort of decentralization in the management of electronic waste. None of the municipalities or even the Cochin Corporation, officials of Cochin Corporation were not aware of how much quantity of e-waste was being generated and what the households and the institutions were doing with the e-waste. So, and even they asked me if I could provide with a copy of the e-waste rules that has been laid out.
Okay, Shika.
Yes,
so which
so
means that the supervisory mechanisms and the implementing authorities both
yes,
fail
sir.
in a terrible manner.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
So which means that there is an utter regulatory failure that happens
Absolutely,
with respect
sir.
to the e-waste management. Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if anybody has any other questions? So nothing has been came in the chat box, which means that.
Can I also answer?
Yeah.
Okay. Sir, with respect to the definition of expenditure, the paper is basically on capex on education and determinants of capex on education. While explaining, I just explained what are the components of public expenditure. So basically, we know that components of public expenditure, broadly, we have revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. Along with that, we have grants from the center also. So total expenditure constitutes of revenue, capex, and grants from central. But my paper specifically focuses on capex on education. And second thing regarding the special requirement with respect to the capex you mentioned. It is basically when we consider the level-wise education, primary, secondary, and higher education, and it is also an abstract term to be captured in an analytical model. So I have basically captured the overall capex in a state allocated for education in the present paper, but there is a scope for further researches that we can actually
when you talk about Ashwati, so
yeah.
what I feel is that when you focus upon the determinants of capital expenditure, the determinants of the capital expenditure has some crucial bearing upon the process of education that is being taking place.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So that becomes a very important one. So fine, you consider that in your further work.
Yeah, further work. Sure. Thank you so much.
So then we can move to the next set of presentations. They focus upon the various fiscal issues, such as the tax performance of Indian states after the introduction of GST, public debt sustainability, and fiscal federalism. So I shall call Dulhak S of Central University of Kerala to make the presentation on the tax performance of Indian states after GST. Dulhak, please make the presentation.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. Please confine your presentation within 7 to 8 minutes. Okay.
Yes, but the host has disabled the screen share.
So Nino, please make all the paper presentations as co-host so that we can save time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dilhak, are you able to present it right now?
No, actually, not actually. No. Still showing us a host has disabled participant screen showing. Yeah,
Try
okay,
again.
fine. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Is it visible? Hello?
You are, yes, you are audible.
Yeah,
Make it now.
thank you, sir, for allowing me. So, as our, I will begin, as we have to confine to the time, I will begin conclude. So, as our chair have already said in the second session of our conference, the public finance, the fiscal federalism in our country has gone a dramatic change in the recent years, and which has been um, um, very has much increased so much by the FRBM Act of 2003 as well as the reducing tax devolution to the state governments. As even though the 14th Finance Commission has increased the share of state governments from 32 to 42%, the increase in the share of cess and surcharges in the gross tax revenue has reduced it actually to 29% of the tax revenue. So in these circumstances, it is in this circumstance where the federal government, union government have introduced the GST in 2007 as the largest ever reform in India after independence, tax reform in India after independence. Although I will skip this part. At the motive of the study is actually the GST was proposed as a destination-based consumption tax, which meant that the state where the goods are finally consumed will get the tax on the supply and goods and services. It is in this argument that, as Dr. Thomas Isaac have already said in the first session, Kerala supported GST in the initial stages. Like as we consume almost 2/3 of our products. We are a consumer state and we import almost 2/3 of our products from other states. So GST need to will eventually help us to increase our business base. But although the GST was good in this aspect, GST made the state governments without power. Like they don't have any power to legislate levy new taxes or legislate new laws which relate to the finance, so that they can raise new revenues within the state itself. Which itself made that the concept of fiscal federalism has gone absurd in this aspect. And India's development is totally uneven. Like certain states like Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala, Karnataka are faring far better than other states like Bihar, Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh. They have a visible horizontal inequality. Yet, so we can't confine to a tax system which is peculiar in nature that a single tax regime to all states. Even the states can't have a particular tax of themselves, except in liquor and in petrol. So it is in this aspect I have decided to go into GST and its the impact of GST on the tax performance of the state. The data sources is exploratory research techniques based on secondary data collected from RBI reports and other various state government, state and union government resources. So objectives is prime objectives is the tax performance Kerala with respect to the Kerala's own tax revenue with respect to the state's gross domestic product and scrutinize the impact of implementation on different Indian states, categorizing them into manufacturing states and consumer states as well as on the basis of income. So I will avoid all this. Okay. So I will begin with this is the state sound tax revenue to GDP ratio of Kerala. As you can see, the ratio of sound tax revenue with respect to GDP is almost above than 6.5, around 6.7, 6.8% until 2017-18 when GST was introduced. Later which it has reduced to 4. With respect to GDP, Kerala's own tax revenue has started to fall after 2017-18. Although it can be blamed upon the pandemic, which have happened in the last month of the financial year 2019-20. Yet the normal year before the pandemic, which is 2018-19, it was still falling after still falling. Like the performance of the own tax revenue with respect to GDP before the introduction of GST was very much far better when compared to the post GST period of Kerala. And the growth rate, when we compare the growth rate, even though the growth rate of GSDP is higher after 2018, even 2018-19, the growth rate of the state own tax revenue is far lower, which means that the state GDP has no role in the state's own tax revenue. Like although the state's GDP has performed far better, the own tax revenue has not met the expectations as because of this introduction of GST. And I will go into the impact of GST on Indian states and have categorized the Indian states on the income as well as category on the basis of income into the category high income, middle income, and low income states. As you can see, I have included 5 states in each category with Goa, Haryana, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Punjab in high income states. As you can see, after 2017-18, in which the financial year in which GST was introduced, the own tax revenue of high income state governments have started to fall with respect to their GDP. Or to be precise, they haven't experienced any. To be more precise, they haven't experienced any growth in their own tax revenue with respect to their GDP. Actually, for an exception of Gujarat, which has started to fall, have a fall in their own tax revenue to GDP ratio from 2012 itself. All other states have started either a stagnated or a reduced growth rate, reduced share of own tax revenue with respect to their GDP. So coming to the middle income states have neither experienced a growth nor a downfall, but a stagnated level of own tax revenue with respect to their GDP after the introduction of GST. The graph of Andhra Pradesh is a little confusing because it includes the own tax revenue of the undivided Andhra Pradesh, which has been bifurcated in 2014 to Telangana. So leave it. But yet, after the introduction of GST, the performance of middle income states with respect to their own tax revenue, with respect to their GDP, is actually either stagnating or falling, but there is no increase. In case of low income states like Madhya Pradesh, Odisha, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, and Bihar, they have highly fluctuating own tax revenue with respect to their GDP. And after 2017-18, except the case of Uttar Pradesh, all other states have experienced a fall in their own tax revenue with respect to GDP. It's important to note here that the low-income states are the one which consumes more. Like they need more resources to sustain, and they need more income. I mean, they consume more when they produce less and they consume more from other states. So, in theory, GST should benefit these states. The own tax revenue of these low-income states should have gone up and compared to GDP after the introduction of GST. But yet, in the empirical studies show that GST has not benefited low-income states, either low-income or middle-income or high-income states. But all in respective of these category, GST have either stagnated or reduced the share of own tax revenue with respect to GDP of all these states. And when we come in important aspect of the another GST is another important aspect of GST is that GST will benefit consumer states. Of course, GST is like destination-based tax. Consumer states will benefit. Like the advocates of GST said that GST is a consumer-based tax, so consumer-based tax. So the states which consume much far high, the low-income states as well as the consumer states will benefit much better than manufacturing and rich states. It was in these arguments that GST was introduced in India. Yet the empirical studies show that the manufacturing states like Karnataka, Andhra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, or Maharashtra has not experienced. Actually, it has experienced a fall in their tax revenue with respect to their GDP. And when it comes to consumer states like Jharkhand, Odisha, Kerala, Bihar, and Madhya Pradesh, all states have actually experienced a fall in their ratio of own tax revenue with respect to GDP after the introduction of GST. Actually, GST should have benefited these states that like they are consumer states, they consume more, they produce less and consume more from other states. So as a destination-based tax, GST should have increased their fiscal space as well as their own tax revenue. But what actually happened was these states actually run out of resources or their own tax revenue share of their with respect to their GDP was actually fall after the introduction of GST. And concluding, I need to conclude with the remark that actually GST have concentrated the power of the resources in favor of union governments, taking away the resources at the disposal of state governments with the favor of the union governments, which made the state governments in literally tenants of the union government. State government need to wait for the union government to release the GST compensation so that they can bear fiscal expenses, so and so and so. Which GST compensations has been discontinued in 2022. The fiscal space of the state governments have been reduced drastically, and the state governments have to either reduce their expenditure or that is not the option. They need to reduce the expenditure, which have crucial effects. Almost 2/3 of the public expenditure in India is being carried out by state governments, and they are the government body that stands close to the people. So, if state governments have run out of resources, it means that the development process of the whole country will come to a standstill, with union governments having more resources, which have some implications like they are increasing the share of cess and surcharges, which is not under the distributed pool of the consolidated fund. So, which is not part of the tax revenue share to the state governments as per the Finance Commission recommendations. So, the state governments have run out of these resources during the last 5 years. Not exactly 5 years, but the situation has been worsened in the last 5 years, with state governments don't have any much resources. And the recommendations I would like to add is like the structure of GST should have to be amended with giving more preference to the state governments with the current 50-50 sharing of resources in favor of state governments, with some 70-30 or 60-40%, 60% to state governments and 40% to the union government, as well as giving more power to the state governments in the more weightage to the state governments in the GST council. I think, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dulhak, for making a very interesting presentation, a very analytical one. And also a special thanks for confining your presentation within the stipulated time. So we will move to the second paper on this session. This Anoj, I call Anoj Singh Rajawat, Christ University, Bangalore, to make the presentation on public debt sustainability and growth.
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, Anoj, you are perfectly audible. Please wind up the session by presentation by 7 and 8 minutes.
Yes, sir, sure, sir. Is my presentation visible, sir?
Yeah, visible. That also visible.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'm Anuj, a student pursuing Masters in Applied Economics from Christ University, Bangalore. First of all, I would like to thank CBS for providing this opportunity to present my paper. And especially, again, thanks for arranging this session online. So the title of my presentation is Public Debt, Sustainability and Growth, an Analysis of Indian States, which I have worked with my co-authors, Blessy Augustine and S. Sukumaran, who are the assistant professors at Christ. So this is the outline of the presentation. So I would like to start with a very brief introduction about the public debt scenario that is happening across the globe currently. As we have seen the Sri Lankan crisis and the crisis that is happening in the Pakistan right now with regard to higher public debt and the bailout packages that they're seeking out from IMF. This study is basically focused mainly on Indian perspective and across the states of India. So the FRBM committee of 2018 basically set up the target for both the center and states for 40% and 20% respectively to keep the debt to GSDP ratio within this limit. But both the center and the states are not able to keep up this target and are having some issues. So this was the literature that I reviewed, which basically is divided into 3 themes: impact of public debt on growth, the negative relation between the growth and GSDP, the sustainability and the major determinants of public debt. So the major objective of this study is basically to find out, to assess the sustainability levels of the debt level across all the Indian states for this time period, for the 27 years, using econometric tools and techniques. And the second part basically deals about the growth and debt nexus using the descriptive analysis to check whether the capital expenditure or the revenue expenditure, which part is a major determinant in when the debt is higher. The data has been taken mainly from RBI and CAG, and the time period involved is 1994 to 2021. The GSDP figures have been converted for the base year 2011-12 using the splicing technique. And these are some of the variables that we have used. So, and the differentiation between the states is useful for the descriptive analysis, but for the sustainability analysis, we have kept like all the states individually. We have done the econometric tests, and only 2 states are missing here, Mizoram and Goa, because the data was not available for those 2 states. So yeah, so the 2 parts, so for the first part, we have done 3 tests, which have been recommended by in the literature that we reviewed. The first test basically deals with the stationary test for the debt to GSDP ratio using augmented Dickey-Fuller test. For this test, this test basically deals if the debt to GSDP is stationary at I0, integrated order 0, then the debt is considered as stable and sustainable. The second test deals with the co-integration test between the total receipts and total expenditure. As Murli sir was explaining, that if both the receipts and expenditure are co-integrated, basically that is an indication that the debt is sustainable for the long run. And the last test for the part A is the autoregressive distributed lag framework, in which we check the major determinants of primary deficit, whether it is GSDP growth rate or primary balance and the debt to GSDP ratio. The second part basically deals about the descriptive analysis of debt to GSDP, in which we will check the pre and post implementation of FRBM. So I will come to the results directly. So when we go through the part A results, where we are checking the sustainability levels of all the states for the 27 years, the first test here, basically the stationarity test. So we found that only 2 states were fulfilling the condition, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana combined, because the Telangana was formed recently. So we took the merged results. So for only these 2 states, the debt to GSDP ratio was coming as stationary at the integrated order 0, which basically means that their debt was stable for all these 27 years. And for all the other states, basically, according to this test, the debt was considered not as sustainable. And when we move on to the test 2, that is the co-integration test using the Johansson technique, again here, the results were not consistent compared to the test 1. So here, Bihar and Jharkhand, if we take the results combined, and Rajasthan, for these 2 states only, the total receipts and total expenditure was co-integrated for the long run. So basically, which implies that their debt is stable and sustainable for the long run. So the test 1 and test 2 were basically recommended like in 1980s and 1990s. So after applying these techniques across the Indian states, we found very inconsistent results. But still, it was very important to apply these techniques on the states. That's why we move on to the third test, which is far better compared to the first 2, because this ARDL framework basically deals about that which one of the determinants, which one of the independent variable is going to affect the primary deficit more for all the states. So here we have taken primary deficit to GSDP as our dependent variable. And there are 3 independent variables here: primary GSDP growth rate, interest payment to public debt, and debt to GSDP. But for this analysis right now, we have taken only debt to GSDP and primary deficit to consider for. So here, according to this framework, a state will be considered, the finances of the state will be considered sustainable only if the lagged value, that is the previous year's debt value, is negative and significant. So here, the 4 states, Kerala, Gujarat, Odisha, and Punjab. As you can see here, the highlighted values, the coefficient is coming as negative and it is significant as well. This basically implies that the previous year's debt is basically able to minimize the primary deficit for today and for the future generation, for the future years, for that particular state. That is the whole logic of doing this ARDL model. I will again repeat that the negative value of the debt last year basically implies a reduction in the primary deficit for the future and for the current for that particular state. So based on this analysis, Kerala, Gujarat, Odisha, and Punjab can be considered as sustainable. So this was the whole sustainability analysis that we did. And coming back to the last result that we did, that is the descriptive analysis. In this, basically, we divided all the states under as all the states, special category states, and non-special category states. And here we divided the time as the post-FRBM implementation, that is 2003, and pre-FRBM implementation, 1994 to 2003. Here we found that when FRBM was not implemented, from 1994 to 2003, the debt level never crossed the 40% benchmark. That is the threshold. And in this period, we saw that the growth rate of the debt, the growth rate of the debt was coinciding with the growth rate of the capital expenditure also for all the states. But compared to the post-FRBM implementation, here we see that not just the growth rate of GSDP is declining majorly, but the growth rate of the capital expenditure is also going down, which is an indicator that post-FRBM implementation 2004, all the states are majorly going for huge and heavy borrowing, but not for the development side, that is putting more money on the capital expenditure, but going towards more on the revenue expenditure and flexing it with the everything. So that was the whole point of this analysis to check out. So basically the whole analysis talks about the sustainability and the relationship between the capital expenditure and revenue expenditure part. And the future research part will involve like individual analysis and focusing more on crunching the ARDL framework to know about other variables and their relationship with the primary deficit. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, Anuj, thank you for making the presentation. Okay, so we move on to the third paper in this session. It will be presented by Aishwarya Vishwan, Applied Economics, CUSAT, and it will be on the title of Fiscal Federalism and Decentralization, a review of public service delivery. Over to Aishwarya.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. Aishwarya, you continue.
Good afternoon to all. Myself, Aishwarya Vishwan, MA first year student from Department of Applied Economics. I'm here to present a conceptual paper on topic Fiscal Federalism, Decentralization and Public Service Delivery. This is a review paper based on the existing literature done by the researchers under the purview of Fiscal Federalism, which stresses on the positive as well as negative outcome of fiscal decentralization on public service delivery. The importance of fiscal federalism and decentralization on public service delivery. The decentralized government has a comparative advantage in the provision of public goods and services. The efficiency in the provision of public services could be achieved only when local self-government are empowered with the decentralization of functionaries, finance, and freedom of planning. The fiscal health of local government is an important indicator of their ability to deliver adequate services. Thus, improved fiscal decentralization is essential for effective public service delivery. In a federal economy, in order to robust public service delivery by state government, an efficient devolution and transfer of resources from the center to state is pertinent. The issue of fiscal decentralization has been receiving renewed attention from the policymakers in recent times. By now, there is fairly large literature discussing the pros and cons of fiscal decentralization on public service delivery. So in my conceptual paper, I reviewed various literature which represent the positive and negative impact of fiscal decentralization in public service delivery. So some of the studies are present here. The study Fiscal Federalism and Decentralization holds that, in particular, financial management may possess a government with a challenge to local governments. With fiscal decentralization, local governments come to manage substantially large amount of public funds, which may overburden local financial management and auditing system. In fact, the issue of insufficient administrative capacities is likely to be essentially pronounced in highly technical and complex sectors, such as health and education. These sectors need a substantial amount of specialized knowledge, capital and technological investment, as well as general planning capacities, which may be more limited at the local level. Another study on fiscal decentralization states that fiscal decentralization often led to local government being vulnerable to macroeconomic shock, which induced the central government to undertake remedial measures to control public expenditure. The economic stabilization measure reduces spending on social sectors and transfer to local government. The absence of measures to raise local fiscal resources will affect the quality and quantity of local public services. Through granting more fiscal autonomy to subnational government in raising own source of revenue, the problem of limited fiscal transfer to local government can be addressed. The study conducted by us first states that since the local government has a better sense of local preferences, the productivity and quality of service provision can be enhanced through fiscal decentralization. Another important findings by IMF working paper, Fiscal Decentralization and Efficiency of Public Service Delivery, focuses on the efficiency of spending on education and health, indicates that an adequate institutional environment is needed for decentralization to improve public service delivery. The study found that fiscal decentralization serves as a policy tool to improve performance, but only under specific conditions includes effective autonomy of local government, strong accounting at various levels of institution, good governance, and strong capacity at local level. A sufficient degree of expenditure decentralization accompanied by sufficient decentralization of revenue is needed to obtain a favorable outcome. Thus, the concept of fiscal decentralization has been adopted globally as one of the most common institutional reform to improve public service delivery. But the literature on fiscal decentralization provides mixed views on the efficiency of public service delivery. The fiscal decentralization can serve as a policy tool to improve the efficiency of public service, accompanied by a favorable institution and political environment. The decentralized government with a strong fiscal autonomy and efficient institutional framework can ensure efficiency in public service delivery. Thank you.
Okay, Aishwarya. Now we have 3 papers and we need to make a small discussion on these 3 papers. The first paper is made by the Dulha Kes. It's a very good paper and it's a very interesting one also. But I would like to know what would be the reasons that you may suggest regarding the continuous fall of SOTR of different states after the implementation of GST. So that would have been much better. If you have any idea, you please share after this. Then coming to the paper presented by Anoj Singh Rajavat on public debt and sustainability, he has made very rigorous methodological framework which incorporates Johansson's co-integration test and the ARDL model, the auto-regressive distributed lagged model. But the methodological aspects are very rigorous. But this co-integration only means co-movement of 2 series. Doesn't mean there is sustainability or there is stability. It's only focus upon the co-variability of 2 time series variables. So I don't think that it has connection with sustainability or stability. And moreover, that sustainability is a very tricky issue, tricky concept in macroeconomics. You need to give a very reasonable definition as to what do you actually mean by debt sustainability, and that you have not given. And moreover, this is a very important theoretical concept. So you should have given the review of the most important papers that has been made on this topic, like the contribution of Abba P. Lerner on Journal of Political Economy, James Mead's contribution on that, a very important paper published on Oxford Economic Papers, then Franco Modigliani, Michael Kelesky, and so on. So, and the contributions of new classical macroeconomics, especially of Barrow and so on. So this becomes a very, the paper has very theoretical implications. So you are suggested to incorporate that also. And I doubt whether co-integration can be considered as an indication of sustainability or stability. And why should we need that stability at all? So that also becomes a very important question, especially in macroeconomics. So why should we need that stability? Okay, then moving to regarding the third paper, Aishwarya Vijayan, Fiscal Federalism. She has made a very good overview of the literature available with the fiscal federalism and decentralization. So these are my comments as chairman of this session, and the session is open to all. And the paper presenters can make their responses to my observations also.
May
Yeah, please.
Actually, GST was expected to be revenue neutral with some 14% growth rate after the introduction, but actually it happened only some 11%. When we calculated, it's around some 11% of growth rate, as well as actually.
Then what would be the reason for that fall in the SOTR? What would have been the reason? The specific reason. Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea?
Governments have given up around 66 or 67% of their legislative power. Like prior to GST, around 67% of the revenue being raised by within the state. I mean, those revenue 67% of SRTR have been legislated by state government itself. They have the power to legislate, levy, as well as to collect. But after GST, it being given up in order to introduce GST, and which after GST it had been divided on the basis of 50 for state governments and 50% for union government, which of course reduces the share of the revenue of state governments and increases the share of revenue of union governments.
Okay, and tremendous scope is there to expand the study. Okay.
Sir, may I?
Anuj.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for the suggestions. And sir, regarding the co-integration thing, sir, so basically we took all these, I was basically this whole study is heavily inspired on the paper that was done last 2 years back by D.K. Srivastav and his peers. So in that paper, basically they argued that if the total revenue and total expenditure of any government is co-integrated, basically, then it basically implies that their debt will be sustainable and they will be in a position to repay their interest payment obligation in the future. Side by side, if they are.
That I have also seen. But my question is, econometrically speaking, co-integration doesn't mean sustainability or stability.
Yeah. So that is why, when I was after the test 2, I made this point that these 2 tests were proposed long time back, but still, it was important to apply it on the state area. So that is why, the first 2 tests were not. We can't rely on that too much. So that's why we move forward for the ARDL framework and the descriptive analysis. So that's why, sir.
Okay, Anuj. It's a very good. It's a very good paper and very rigorous also. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Then anybody else from the participants? Okay, then we move on to hope that no questions are there. So, and since time is also running out, we have 2 more papers to be presented as the grassroots experiences connected with the decentralization. So we have 2 papers, one by Tees and Joss, focusing upon the issues of the Life Mission project, and the other one focuses upon the people's participation in Grama Sabha. So I call Tees and Joss to make the presentation.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are perfectly audible.
First of all, I would like to thank you for the institution for.
Do you have a PowerPoint? Do you have a?
Yeah, I have a PowerPoint. I will share now. Visible now?
It's coming. Your material is not visible. Okay. So go for the slideshow.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Hello.
Hello,
sir.
Continue.
Okay. My topic is housing deprivation and the local governance, the study of the Life Mission in Kerala model, which is co-authored by Dr. Erdikesh with us. And basically, housing is actually the basic need of every human being in society, and it is most important indicator of poverty. I'm taking the multidimensional poverty index published by Niti Aayog, and housing is one of the most indicator. There are 3 indicators, 3 dimensions that we calculate the multidimensional poverty index. Housing deprivation is one of the most important indicator for determining the standard of living of the household. So we can see the definition housing deprivation is that lack of house ownership or having dilapidated houses. That is actually the deprivation of housing as per this index. And we know, as per the 13th five-year plan, Kerala State Planning Board 2017-2022, majority of people are actually found to be from scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities are actually still living in dilapidated houses. So when you compare to the other states in India, Kerala, we are actually better positioned in Human Development Index, and the multidimensional poverty index only 0.4% of the people are actually living in a housing deprivation in Kerala. Even though state holds a leading position or dominant position in the Human Development Index, there is huge disparity among the regions and certain communities like SC and STs. So these kind of disparity that actually create a lot of problems, anomalies in the path of development, and that would reduce the welfare of human beings. Compared to other states, the average quality and standard of housing in Kerala are better. According to 2011 housing census, we can see there are 336 houses for every 1,000 persons in Kerala, while it was 273 houses per 1,000 persons in country as an all. So this actually shows that the state with the 2.7% of the country's population, they had only 3.1% of total housing stock. So here, as per the latest housing census, 10.6% of the total census houses in Kerala remain vacant. So we need not think of this is not the numerical shortage of the residential houses is not a major issue in Kerala. But at the same time, when you look into the houselessness among the poor people in some area, in certain areas, and also poor quality dilapidated houses among the vulnerable section of society, and taking the SC and STs, as per the State Planning Board Survey 2016 on housing of vulnerable communities, we can see 12.04% of them are residing in a dilapidated houses. When you compare the latest 2 rounds of National Family Health Survey, 4th round and 5th round, that actually conducted in 2 different periods, 2015-16 and 2019-20, we can see the deprivation that has been increased from 10.8% to the 16.7%. This is only happening in Kerala. But when you compare, when you take into account other states, it has been reduced. The deprivation has been reduced. But at the same time in Kerala, it has been increased from 10.8% to the 16.7%. You can see that picture. All states except Kerala, it has been reduced. When you take into the 2 rounds of family health survey, it has been reduced. But in the Kerala, it has been increased from 10.8% to 16.7%. This is the most important statement of problem. I just look into the objectives, assess the districts-wise analysis of housing deprivation in Kerala, and for examining the relation between the housing deprivation magnitude and the count ratio of the backward families in Kerala. And also in my study throughout, I evaluate the performance of the housing scheme Life Mission, that is Livelihood, Inclusion and Family Empowerment Program that is actually started in 2016 by the Kerala government. When you just look into the state-wise analysis in regarding the housing deprivation, we can see only 0.4% of the housing deprivation that can be found in Kerala itself. But in the percentage of the households living in dilapidated houses in Kerala and India, you just look at, see the SC households in Kerala, there is a housing deprivation is 11.1%. But in all India level, it is only 8.1%. And in the case of ST, we can see that there is 16.3% of the ST households living in dilapidated houses in Kerala. But at the same time, in all India level, it is only 6.3%. Okay, so this actually shows that Kerala, SC and ST shows high, comparatively high housing deprivation. And also we can look into account the proportion of households living in dilapidated houses in districts of Kerala. We can see that Kasaragod shows highest deprived districts, that is 23.3% of the households living in dilapidated houses. From this analysis, we can see that Kasaragod district, which is actually 14.8% of the people are actually living in dilapidated houses. And also ST households in Kasaragod, that is 23.3%. And we can see the lowest housing deprivation of scheduled tribe households is recorded in Thrissur district, which is only 8.3%. And the scheduled caste households, lowest deprivation, that is in Kannur, and Malappuram stands lowest in general category, which is only 3.4%. But at the same time, in the case of general category, the highest household deprivation that can be found in Idukki district. This is actually the housing deprivation and headcount ratio of multidimensional poverty. I'm just connecting with that. And this is a result of the regression statistics. And here's the dependent variable is actually the headcount ratio, and independent variable, that is actually the housing deprivation. When you see the result, you can see that the 42% of the headcount ratio that is explained by the housing deprivation. And also regression, that is very significant result. We can see this is a significant result and a 5% level of significance. So the y is equal to 0.035 plus 0.029x. The headcount ratio is depending on the housing deprivation. So the local self-governments and the housing deprivation and a glimpse of life mission. So we can see the identification of houseless households and preparing the housing action plan with the specific action emphasis on marginalized section of society is the major responsibility of the local self-government. And these local self-government institutions are one of the implementing bodies of the several housing schemes in Kerala, that's as per the Economic Review 2022. So the Life Mission, the livelihood inclusion and financial empowerment, that is the most important flagship program that is actually implemented in
Hello, Tisan, you rush to the findings.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. I'm coming there. I'm coming. Okay. As
Because
a part
it is
of
already
this
8 minutes. Already
okay,
we
okay.
have completed 8 minutes.
Okay, okay, I'm coming to the findings. As per the survey conducted by Life Mission, around 3 lakhs beneficiaries are identified, which means these are all being deprived of the land and home. However, with the high density of population in Kerala and increased pressure on land, it became very difficult to meet the requirements of the beneficiaries under this category. And we can see the district-wise performance of Life Mission. Just keep that. Major findings and conclusion, the district-wise analysis that actually shows that tribal families in some districts are found to be highly deprived, and 11% of the households living in dilapidated houses in Kerala belongs to SC, and 16% of them belongs to ST category, but only 5.3% belongs to the general category. And from the regression analysis, I also mentioned that 42% of the total variation in the headcount ratio that is actually clearly explained by the changes in the housing deprivation. And the Life Mission has implemented several housing schemes for marginalized section of society with the provision of providing the houses to houseless and landless households in 3 different places. And the district-wise analysis of housing deprivation, I already mentioned that Kasaragod and Trivandrum are found to be the district having highest number of SC households living in dilapidated houses. It is 14.8% and 14.7%. But only 1.1% and 0.64% of them are actually covered under the Life Mission in terms of financial assistance to the house construction. In Malappuram also, we can see 8% of them living in dilapidated houses, but only 0.7% of them are covered under the Life Mission. So Kerala housing situation is not homogeneous all over the state. There are some pockets, many pockets in the state with the substandard living condition, and tribal communities are most vulnerable to the housing deprivation. Therefore, concrete action and effective local governance system that is very urgently required for addressing the same issue that is happening in the housing distribution. That is the most important problem that we can see. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Tisan. So we move on to the last paper on this session. So that paper is on people's participation in Grama Sabha, a study of Koladi Grama Panchayat. There has been a paper came out of the BA Honors Project work conducted at Maharaja's College, Ernakulam. So I invite Gauri Priya to make the presentation.
Sir, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. So you make the presentation in the slideshow mode, Gauri.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon to all. Actually, I'm really grateful for this opportunity. Our study is titled People's Participation in Grama Sabha, a study of college Grama Panchayat of Thrissur. This is a study that we conducted during our internship program at Kerala Institute of Local Administration, Thrissur. As we all know, Grama Sabha is the grassroots level statutory body which is meant for the ultimate devolution of power or transfer of power directly to the people.
Gauri, you show the slide, you move the slide.
Okay, sir. For attaining the goal of decentralized planning in its real sense, people's participation in Grama Sabha should be ensured. Thereby, the grassroots level problems and needs can be effectively understood and rectified. People will have a say on things which will affect their daily lives. Resource allocation can be done in a more participatory nature. As I have mentioned earlier, Grama Sabha is a statutory body, which means that there is certain constitutional provisions. And when we say about that, in the Panchayati Raj Act section 3(2), it mentions that the persons whose names are in the electoral rolls can be a participant of Grama Sabha. That is, every electors or every voters can be a participant of Grama Sabha. That is, there is inclusiveness. There is no such discrimination in any of the basis like caste, creed, educational qualification, or their social background, etc. In the article 243 of 73rd constitutional amendment, it says that Grama Sabha at the village level is equivalent to the state legislative assembly, that they have the power to make decisions. If we move on to the role and importance of Grama Sabha, by interpreting the Panchayati Raj Act, we will understand that Grama Sabha provides a political forum to people in the village to meet and discuss their own common problems and consequently understand the needs and aspirations of the community. When we make a plan in the grassroots level, we have to understand the felt needs of the people, and this can be done through Grama Sabhas. And Grama Sabha also functions as a monitoring authority of the elected representatives, that we can control the malpractices and corruptions. And Grama Sabha is the epitome of participatory and direct democracy. And this Grama Sabha can give valuable suggestions and recommendations for the Grama Panchayat for the effective implementations of plan. And Grama Sabhas can also act as watchdogs, as it directly monitors the plans and it guards the interest of the village communities. And if we move on to the study area and the findings, we conducted our study in the Kolari Grama Panchayat, which is very well known for its conduct of Grama Sabhas and special Grama Sabhas. Kolari Grama Panchayat is situated in Thrissur, and we took the ward number 4 of Kolari Grama Panchayat on the recommendations of the people from Killa and the officials of Panchayat. We took 35 households for our studies, and from our studies, among the 35 households, only 20 of them participates in Grama Sabha, and 15 of them are not participating in Grama Sabhas. If we take the frequency of participation, we divided the type of participations into 3, that is never, rarely, and always. The people in the never category are not at all participating in Grama Sabha, but the people in rarely category participates in Grama Sabha once in a year or once in 2 years, and the people in always category participates in Grama Sabha in a usual basis, that they attend the Grama Sabha in all of the Grama Sabha meetings. And from this table, we can understand that the people who take Grama Sabha meetings seriously, that the ones that always participating in Grama Sabha meetings are really less. That among the 35 respondents, only 9 of them participates in Grama Sabha on a usual basis. That is, the percentage is 25.71%. And if we look into the gender-wise participation, in our study, we took 24 of them were female and 11 of them were male. And if we look into the table, we can find that among the male respondents, most of them participate in Grama Sabha meetings. That among the 11 respondents, 9 of them, 81.81% participate in Grama Sabha meetings. And if we look into the female participation, only 11 of the 24 respondents participates in the Grama Sabha meetings. And if we look into the reasons for participation for the rarely category, it is mostly for availing of any benefits. Like we know that Grama Sabha meetings are conducted 4 times a year, and in the second Grama Sabha, the beneficiaries of certain welfare schemes are selected, and they attend the Grama Sabha meetings for getting selected as a beneficiaries. And only one person attends the Grama Sabha meetings to raise specific needs of the community or their personal needs. And 3 of the participants participate in the Grama Sabha meetings for to spend their leisure time, or they go to the Grama Sabha meetings to accompany their neighbors, etc. If you look into the reasons for participation in always section, we can find that only 3 of the participants see the Grama Sabha meetings as a democratic weapon. That we have seen that there are certain constitutional provisions, and the Grama Sabhas give, or the law is giving people the power directly to them, or the power is given directly to them, but only a very less people are using it as a democratic weapon. And if we look into the general awareness about the Grama Sabha, while we structured our questionnaire, we also included some 15 questions about the details about Grama Sabha, like how frequently it is conducted, who presides over the Grama Sabha, what is the legal quorum to be fulfilled during the Grama Sabha meetings, what are its responsibilities likewise. And we asked that questions to each of the respondents, and after that we categorized the people according to the marks they scored. And as we can see from the table, only 3 persons, only 3 of the respondents have a good knowledge about the, or good awareness about the Grama Sabha, and a large section of people are in the good category. So we can derive at a conclusion that the persons who are aware about the rights and their powers in Grama Sabha meetings are really less. And if we come to our major findings, they are lack of knowledge and lack of awareness about the functioning and powers of Grama Sabha is prevalent among the people. They attend Grama Sabha mainly for availing benefits. We know that there are certain bodies like Kudumbasri, and for getting selected as the beneficiary of National Rural Employment Scheme, they participate in Grama Sabha meetings for getting selected for that welfare schemes. As per the law, every voter have the right to participate in Grama Sabha, but according to the data collected from the survey, we found that only 1 voter from 1 household participates in the Grama Sabha. There was a prevalent trend like one voter from 1 household, that if a person attends a Grama Sabha meeting from a household, no other members will participate, or no other eligible voters will never attend a meeting. That on most of the time, that 1 voter will be the male guardian of that family, or the male head of that family. So we can assume, we have arrived at a conclusion that the women's perspective, or the women's needs and their perspective about the working of the panchayat is not reflected, and the youth participation is also not at all reflected. The 1% that represents the household in majority of cases is a male member of the household, especially the retired parents or the elderly people from the household. That we also know that
Gauri, it is almost 8 minutes. You rush the findings. Rush through the
okay,
findings.
sir. Okay, sir. Okay. So they participate in the meeting as they have a lot of time. As education and job level becomes higher, participation in Grama Sabha becomes poor. It is really difficult to get leave from high level jobs. As education and job level increases, their income also increases. So this has a negative impact on the participation rate. The similar result can be traced from the study quoted in the literature review. From survey, we understood that majority of the people do not consider Grama Sabha as a democratic weapon. They just consider it as a place for getting selected as beneficiaries of different welfare schemes. Our suggestions are we can give more interns or appoint more officials in the panchayat level. During the decentralization process, many departments are transferred to the local self-government, and the workload is very immense. And we have seen that directly while we interviewed the Grama Panchayat president in his office. So we can appoint interns, etc. And we can conduct a discussion with women and choose a time which is more appropriate to them. And panchayat secretaries have to make sure that the minutes of the Grama Sabha meetings is closed. When we checked the secondary data, we looked into the minutes book of 2017, and in that year we checked that book in 2023, and the minutes of 2017 was not closed. And while we looked into the details of one meeting, the details were not at all complete. There were only a list of 50 members. Their age was not mentioned, their address was not mentioned, like that. So that raised a suspicion among us that the meeting is not conducted properly. There is a quorum in the law. They suggest a quorum of 10% of voters, but that 10% doesn't cover all the different sections of the people. So we suggest that there a sub-quorum will be implemented in the case of Grama Sabha, so we can ensure the participation of women, the SC/ST category, the youth, etc. We have to make more awareness drives among the youth and among all sections of the people. If we can do the awareness drives in colleges, in schools, in the youth clubs where the youth more participates, or the areas where there is more public attention, we believe that the people's participation will increase. And
Okay, Gauri. So you have made all the major findings and suggestions of your study, because it is already 12 minutes. Okay. So that we can finish here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So we have two papers in the final session where we have discussed the various grassroots experiences connected with the decentralization. So T. Joe's paper on Life Mission and this Grama Sabha. So regarding the T. Joe's paper, it would be better if he make a bit more explanation regarding the regression model, because in the regression model, the dependent variable is, what I have seen is that the dependent variable is the head count ratio, and the explanatory variable is the deprivation index. So what is the meaning of that model? I cannot understand properly. Then another, in one slide I have seen that it is the housing deprivation percentage is 0.4%, but on another slide I have seen that among SC community 16% are deprived of housing, then XT around 10 or 11%, and for the general category some 5 to 6%. So if that is the distribution, then how it become 0.4 as the total deprivation for the state? So you may have observations, so please share. And regarding the final paper, this people's participation in Grama Sabha, so I am not making much comments because I am also a part of that study, because under the guidance of me, the undergraduate students conducted that study. So it is open to the session, open to the floor. And Tison, if you have any explanations, you can make.
Sir, in the regression, sir, am I audible now?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah, sir, in the regression analysis, I am taking the headcount ratio is a dependent variable, and the housing deprivation, that is actually explanatory variable and dependent variable. So we can see that the result is actually saying that the R square that is actually 46.
No, what is the meaning of that model? I couldn't understand that.
So the housing deprivation that is actually influencing the headcount ratio, multiple dimensional poverty index. I already said that there are 3 indicators. That
No, what is
education.
Tison, my confusion is that, so what is your hypothesis? So before running the regression, we need a hypothesis, or we have a tentative relationship, and that I couldn't understand. Maybe it is because of my problem. Can you please,
sir, let me say one thing, sir. This is actually housing is one of the major indicator that shows the standard of living of the households. So we are actually taking into account for measuring the multidimensional poverty index. There are 10 indicators are there. One indicator is that the housing. So here it is housing deprivation. That is the most important thing that we have to take into account for multidimensional poverty index.
So which means that housing deprivation is leading to what?
Headcount ratio.
What headcount ratio?
Headcount ratio multidimensional poverty index. We are actually calculating how many of them the people are actually multidimensionally poor. In that sense, I am actually calculating the headcount ratio. How many of
so you people have taken that then from where you got the number of that multidimensionally deprived persons?
That is the recent baseline report published by NIDI Aayog 2021.
And then the housing deprivation, that also you take from there?
No, that is a housing report, is the 2016 housing report.
Okay, that headcount ratio you have taken from the NIDI Aayog's report.
NIDI Aayog baseline report 2021.
And then deprivation number?
Housing deprivation, that is the 2016 housing report.
Oh, so which means that the explanatory variable and the dependent variable, the data has been taken from 2 different reports.
Yeah. Okay.
So then that has a problem. Because
okay, sir, I will.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Oh.
And moreover, it was not, now it is clear, but while you made the presentation, it was not clear regarding that, what actually mean by that headcount ratio. Okay, Tison, okay. You can update on that. Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Okay.
So if anybody has any question, not only on these 2 papers, but on the other papers that has been presented earlier, you can make. Otherwise, we will end this session. So I shall make the concluding remarks of this session. So we have 7 papers, and all these 7 papers are good attempts to study the various aspects of fiscal federalism and decentralization experiences of our state. So some are very rigorous in analytical sense, but and also have made very important observations also. But there is tremendous scope is there for improving all that studies, so that they can make that studies as a very good research papers. So with these words, I would like to end this session of paper presentations. Thank you, Nino.
Thank you so much, sir, for chairing this session and for your careful deliberations. So I also appreciate the effort taken by the participants to present their papers. So, and with this, we have officially come to the end of this conference. And it's very evident that this conference on India's new fiscal federalism has shed light on the emerging challenges that lie ahead. So the discussions have highlighted the need for greater collaboration and coordination between the different levels of government, and also emphasize the need to strengthen the local government and to empower the local communities. And it is clear that it is so much work to be done, but with the commitment and dedication of all the stakeholders, we can build a more equitable and prosperous India for all. So thank you to all the speakers and participants for their valuable insights and contributions to this important conversation. Thank you all and have a good day.